for me, it's kind of about the human condition and the narratives that we kind of have for ourselves as humans as we go about kind of living our lives. And so the first narratives in my mind are these narratives of kind of fable and fairy tale and kind of they have a slightly magical quality about them when you think back to your childhood. Has this kind of like dislocated, slightly weird kind of quality, but these narratives of kind of hope and dream and kind of loss and success and kind of giving and taking and things like that. They're all very well expressed through these. I mean, to my mind, it's kind of Aesop's fables being some of the first stories that you have. Those little sort of ladybird books with kind of thing in
Yeah.
it. Where's my animals? And I kind of like the animals. Well, they're really specific. They're kind of universal. So a lot of the animals in these narratives are kind of loaded up with narrative. So if you use like a fox, for example, it kind of comes loaded up with this sort of idea that it's kind of wily and cunning and all these kind of things. And so I liked the idea of kind of building human stories about the things that go on in our lives using these animals as kind of representative of kind of states of mind, if you like.
Mm.
So sorry, that sounds a bit convoluted, but
No, not at all.
and when I did my first sort of group of work for that first show, it was about like when you're sort of sitting around living your life, there are moments where you make choices and you go one way or you go the other way, or you have an idea and you decide to go this way or that way, or you decide to terminate a relationship, or you decide to not take a job or take a job, and there are all these kind of paths that you could have taken or sort of not taken. And I like the idea that in your mind, you're kind of you are the summary of all these decisions and ideas that you've had and sort of dreams that you've had and dreams that you've had and haven't realized and dreams that you've had and have realized and kind of ideas that you've not done or and done. And so the idea that they're kind of all around you in if you could see them made flesh, they'd be sort of slightly ethereal, kind of transient, sort of flighty little sort of creatures. So I had a series of, at that time, kind of often nudes or sort of people like that, kind of with these things made visible. So at that time, I was using kind of butterflies and insects and moths and things, and they were kind of pinned on to the people's bodies and the sort of larger hopes kind of realized and not realized. At that time had gone into the museum and photographed a lot of animals that had these kind of tags, the stuffed birds,
Yeah.
of specimens of these birds that were kind of like these flighted beautiful things that represented to me kind of ideas or dreams, that they were kind of frozen and stuffed into these boxes. And so if you ever go you can make an appointment and go. They open up these kind of stacks and they've got all these boxes and boxes and boxes of these kind of frozen animals, and in
Mm.
particular these birds, like in mid-flight. And they're beautiful and kind of incandescent, but they've stopped. So they're kind of like frozen dreams, and they're
Yeah.
labeled with these fantastic sort of old labels with this kind of all pencily sort of script on. And that's kind of how it started, honestly, going in there and seeing that, because it was like all these frozen possibilities, and they
Mm.
represent all these frozen possibilities. And so I started off using those and these kind of the idea of insects that have been kind of pinned and preserved, and then the insects and the birds became the kind of center of the narrative, and then they became kind of alive. So they themselves became the characters.